Joining us now to break down the Murdaugh trial for us is criminal defense attorney Ari Goldkind. Ari, what is the most shocking thing about this trial?
A number of shocking things. Let's start with how fast the jury comes back with a 3-hour verdict. In a capital murder case like this in the States, that's an astounding and quite concerning to me as a defense lawyer length of time. In Canada, even when juries have that kind of verdict, they all go into the room and they agree. They almost want to spend a night in a murder case and something very serious, at least making it look like they took some time to deliberate. I can assure you in those 3 hours, there wasn't a lot of deliberation. There was probably a poll and then maybe sitting in the room for 2 hours talking about family members. I'm being somewhat facetious, but that really concerns me, the speed of the verdict. Number two, the part that a lot of people don't understand is just how junky some of the science was. For example, the T-shirt he's wearing on the night with blood spatter on it. Blood spatter can often be junk science. That was probably too heavily relied upon. And three, was this man convicted because he was such an embezzler, drug addict, opioid user, money launderer, defrocked lawyer, former scion of a huge family? Was this a little bit of punishing a guy who really was public enemy number one versus clear and convincing evidence that there wouldn't be a reasonable doubt that he did it? Those are the three things that jump out to me.
Do you think the verdict was a surprise to anyone?
No, I don't think the verdict was a surprise, because when you look at the massive amount of heat he had on him, I mean, faking his own death, that's not something a jury is going to be able to disabuse their mind of. Also, there was no alternative suspect. Who else did it? Who else was on that hunting ground near the kennels where the two bodies were found?
Alex Murdaugh was a very influential, powerful, prominent person in South Carolina, and it's alleged he's evaded the law before. So what kind of precedent does this verdict and sentencing set?
Well, he evaded the law for quite a bit of time, dealing with the money laundering, the embezzlement, the opioid scheme that he was running with another person. He was indicted by the grand jury on that well before the murder charges. He's lucky that they took death penalty off the table at the beginning of this prosecution, because this is particularly in the States where you can weigh in on the death penalty, the jury that is. If a jury of his peers, now they had to go far and wide and be very careful with the jury, given, again, the connections in South Carolina. But for a jury to not even take a dinner break or one night in a hotel to digest, to think about it, to go over all the evidence, to ask themselves some questions, which you can't do in 3 hours. I don't care what juror comes out on Oprah or Ellen or ABC Tonight and says differently. 3 hours is nothing in a jury verdict. So the precedent is that he's lucky that he's not getting the death penalty when prosecutors took it off the table for reasons that are interesting. But again, 3 hours, that's still something that doesn't sit right with me in a murder case. But the jury had all the facts. You and I don't.
Thanks so much for joining us, Ari.
Pleasure.